fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
I'm Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine here at Stone Harbor Marina in Cape May County for our first official video forecast of the fall 2021 season. I know it's unofficial, really. Labor Day is the end of fall for many, but the autumnal equinox isn't until September 22nd. But as we all know, as was the tradition where I grew up on Long Beach Island, it is, of course, better in September. One of the reasons I'm here in Stone Harbor, there's actually two of them, but one of them is because of the Northeast Striped Bass study. If you've been following along with the work that we've done in the past couple of years, this is year 3 of the Northeast Striped Bass study. One of the fish that we tagged off of Montauk on June 30th, the tag popped off last week. Actually, it was a couple of weeks ago. I spoke to Roxanne Wilmer of Gray Fish Tag Research just the other day. She said that the tag came off just south of Fire Island on the south shore of Long Island around August 24th. The last feed that we had going up to the Argo satellite overhead was on September 4th. This 40-inch fish, the tag from that fish that came undone, was approximately 11 miles off of Stone Harbor, due east of here, 11 miles. That was on September 4th. That's when the battery stopped feeding. The coordinates on that fish, or on my tag, I should say, 38 degrees, 59.880 north by 74 degrees, 30.480 west. Now, hopefully, that mini PSAT device, which is traveling, it seems like it's been traveling south, a little wobble to the southwest, to the southeast. I'm hoping that comes up along the beaches here in Cape May County at some point in the next few days, or even along the Delaware coast. But again, I remind you that mini PSAT device, one of 5 that is out there bobbing along the ocean, there is a cash reward for that. We will have more details on the Northeast Striped Bass study and our 2021 tagging in the October edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's too early to really talk about that because you folks at home probably have not even read through your entire September edition, right? That was out just last week. Subscribers probably got the magazine Friday or Saturday, and I know you're still poring over the content. Well, if you are, look for that Albie on the cover. A lot of good surf stuff in this September edition of the magazine, but on page 16 of the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine, I wrote an article about Sheepshead. I plucked a few books off the shelves, looking at some of the past history, trying to identify, is it really about climate change and migration patterns, or maybe is there some historic reference to Sheepshead? Well, the Sheepshead action here in Cape May County in 2021 has been off the charts for so many people. It has been absolutely tremendous with some large and in charge specimens. I would encourage you, if you encounter one of these Sheepshead of the 10-pound or up class, make sure you let these fish go. They're slow growing, and those big fish, of course, are good breeders. And the smaller fish, which I'm apt to catch on any particular species, think 3, 4, 5 pounders, make great eating. But in that article in the September edition, I answer some of the whys and maybe some of the whats. But what I don't talk about is the how. So I got a chance to meet with Captain Dan Schafer of Insomniac Guide Service here in Stone Harbor to tell me a little bit more about how. What was the Sheepshead fishery like here in Cape May County leading up to Labor Day weekend, and how do you kind of see the rest of the season for September? How long will these fish stay?
There's typically a lull. So you get, in the beginning of May, you get all these school fish that come in. I think my best day in May was like May 15th, and I think we had about 27 fish that day, plus other ones that we had missed or broken off. And from that point in time till about the end of July, then your larger fish start coming in. They start migrating up north. And then there's a little bit of a lull between usually the middle of August till about September. And then this time of year, we're seeing them kind of come back through again. So now they kind of went as far as they're going to go. They turn around, they come back through. The reason I believe that is I don't really ever run into the same school twice. Okay, this fish have different size class. Each fish has its own distinct look too. The bigger ones have like an olive to them, a white to them. Some have different shapes to them. So usually I'm able to recognize in a 3-day period whether I'm catching the same school or if they're still fishing in the area and they've moved along. The most important thing this time of year when they're kind of coming back through again, right now we have a predominant south wind. A south wind does a few things. It takes that Delaware Bay water in Cape May County and pushes it up the beach, okay? And the water will be very stained and at times just very low oxygen levels. So sometimes the fishing is just not very good. The water is kind of sour. I learned that with striped bass back here on the flats I just can't find these fish. And it was just a south wind, sour water. What happens though that you really want to watch out for during this time of year into the fall is when you get a northwest wind. So what happened, especially yesterday, a northwest wind had kicked up the day before, and depending upon the area where you're at, whether it's wind with tide, those fish just turn on. Same thing with striped bass too. We had schools of live bunker coming through the bridges. Beautiful, like 36-inch striped bass grabbing them. So everything kind of comes alive with a northwest wind during this time of year. We're still kind of in the doldrums. We're between seasons. The mullet are back here right now. The fluke we're staging on them. Fluke have kind of moved off now. But as soon as a northwest wind kicks up, everything improves drastically, like up to the minute. And then if the south wind predominates for another day or two, things die down again. So it's northwest wind, September.
So if you're up in Barnegat Bay, or maybe you're someplace on the Raritan looking at some rocky structure or some old bulkhead, even up into Jamaica Bay on Long Island, I guess the question you have is, again, how and whether or not you should be in there doing a little bit of prospecting. Here's what Dan had to say.
The most important thing with sheepshead fishing and tog fishing is that they can hang in different parts of the water column. Sheepshead, they primarily feed in the tide around the intertidal zone. So they can be anywhere from a foot down or almost on the surface, eating barnacles or further down the mussel beard.
You've seen them at the surface, haven't you?
Plenty of times. I see them all the time. I've caught them on the surface. I've had, a couple weeks ago, we had a 14-pounder upside down with his tail out of the water, going like this as he's eating barnacles off of there. And another great thing to do is at low tide, you can go and look along maybe a concrete wall on a structure, and you'll see areas where the barnacles are missing. And that's just them picking off those barnacles. So that's kind of a cheat code of looking around where these fish typically hang during a tide. What I'm looking for typically is a rushing tide. A lot of people may fish around the slack tide for toe tog, and that's very good. Their tails are built different. The tog's tail is very round. Sheepshead has a forked tail. They're built more really like a striped bass. So what they're going to do is, during those slack tide periods, the sheepshead can be around the bridge itself. They can be digging for lady crabs, also known as calico crabs. They can be doing lots of things. As the tide progresses and the tide gets faster and faster and faster, it pulls them into the pilings because there's crabs coming through the water column towards the bridge or towards the jetty. And what those crabs are going to do is they're going to grab onto something. They're going to grab onto a piling. And these sheepshead will just go around in these high current areas and look around those pilings for things. They may spend a moment. Sheepshead can take a tremendous amount of current. They can be on the front side of a piling in a 3-knot current, and you can see them eating to where you can't present to them, and the current's not affecting them at all. It's really, really amazing. So what we do is we take the smallest lee of that piling, and even yesterday we're using 1/4 of an ounce. So we're dropping down that 1/4 of an ounce in the tiniest little lee there is, and then getting down 3 feet, 6 feet. The nice thing about a rushing tide is that it just pulls the fish higher. The crabs will tend to be on the surface versus in the water column as they're coming towards the bridge. And you don't need to be that deep or to use that much weight. Another thing is too, these fish will eat anything. We had sea angels in the back bay, which is a variation of a shellless snail. And one sheepshead we caught ended up throwing up about 200 of these things. And they had been back here for weeks, these sea angels. And so it just goes to show you that anything that comes through the water column's fair game.
I spent quite a bit of time with Captain Dan on his boat today here in Stone Harbor. And next week I'm going to share with you some of his ideas for sod bank fishing, because we are getting into that time of year where stripers, some more of these sheepshead, and of course some blackfish along the sod banks. So make sure you tune in next week for more of my interview with Captain Dan Schafer. But tropical systems, warm waters, you know, our Penn and New York visitors may have left for the most part, but more of our summer visitors are still here, and that includes the triggerfish and the sheepshead. Also some cobia. I found out this week from John Morgan, he and his crew had a 64-pound cobia east of here. It was someplace off of Cape May. He was chasing a school of bluefish, saw this guy, this torpedo along the surface, threw a live bunker at it, and lo and behold, there you go. Fought him for over 40 minutes on a Penn Fathom 25 lever drag. Quote, John said, got some great steaks off that guy. I'm sure you did. Again, when I was talking to Dan this week, he said the same thing. So many bunker off the beaches, and that's where we saw some of those spinner sharks jumping, leaping through the bunker schools recently. I know folks have been seeing more whales down here in South Jersey. As far as those cobia, don't forget the state record was caught 2 years ago by Len Andelis of Philly. 90 pounds, 6 ounces. It was caught in August of 2019 at McCrae's Shoal. It was on a white bucktail with a sluggo. And along with those adult bunker, of course, anybody who's spent any time in the back bays, maybe in your back canals, you've seen the amount of peanut bunker out back here. So that's a good sign. I also think we had an early wave of some of those finger mullet move down along the beaches in between storms. But again, we're still early on that. I expect another good wave or two, and hopefully a solid run of finger mullet along the beaches. Don't forget, we're on the waxing side of the new moon this week, and our next full moon will be on September 20th. Other tasty morsels in the area that are a little tougher to identify, but again, no doubt these tropical systems are one thing, but of course a frequent occurrence in our area. My buddy Nick Cicero sent this photo over to me this week from the Manasquan River. That's a goggle eye or a big eye scad, a threadfin herring, and a sea herring, all caught off the docks of the Manasquan at night on a sabiki rig. Now, makes me think that it's possible we might see some squid, especially in some of those inlet rock piles or inlet jetties or inlet bulkheads closer to the ocean source. I know squid jigging is popular at the east end of Long Island from shore and also up into New England. So the next time you go out there and look around under the lights, and if you're taking a sabiki rig, you might as well take a squid jig as well, just in case. I am south of the fluke flounder border, Mason-Dixon line, if you will. So why don't we start our reports on the flatties this week with the right vernacular. And I'll tell you, it's the same thing down here as it is up in North Jersey as well. It's the reefs, it's the wrecks, it's that structure, it's that deep water. Right before the Labor Day holiday, Brad Fiddler of Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, checked in at Sterling Harbor Bait and Tackle with a 7-pound, 13-ounce flounder caught at Reef Site 11 off the Delaware coast, one of the popular locations, all those reef sites off of Delaware. South Jersey editor Anthony Califano, he said on Sunday the best flounder bite, according to Hands 2 Bait and Tackle in Cape May, was 100 feet or more of water, which falls into something we talked about last week when I spoke to Captain Bob Cope of Cape May, who's been working that deep water for some of those flatties. Also, if you're on Delaware Bay, you might want to try in the 60-foot slough. Word from Hands is live minnows fished on long leaders are taking fish to 4 pounds, as well as a few tide runner weakfish in the 28 to 30-inch range, which is nice to hear, those weakfish down there. 6-year-old Gerald D. Luisi got on the flounder again on Labor Day using a Tsunami glass minnow. That glass minnow he bought the day before with money he earned from a missing tooth, thanks to the tooth fairy. Tooth fairy. You know, if I keep giving the number 1 sign to people on the highway, I might just be able to get myself a new Tsunami Saltex. In the surf, I'm hearing of pockets of incredible fluking up and down the Jersey Shore. You just have to be in the right spot. A solid jig bite, you know, take a variety of those jigs, take a bucket or two of gulp. Also the fish bites, the Fight Club from Fish Bites. It's a matter of working and moving until you find where those fish are sitting. I'm not sure if Pete Busey here jumped on Joe Albanese to get this island beach keeper, or perhaps Joe was just photobombing Pete. But yeah, some casters are on them. Others, well, just keep moving until you find them. I do know who's really on them, and that's the folks in North Jersey. let's split the state in half, north and south. From Manasquan, Shark River, and of course along the Raritan Bayshore where folks are getting into that deep water, although I do think the fluke bite kind of slowed up because of that storm last week with all that runoff. Hopefully things clear up real well this weekend. The Shark River headboat fleet, though, I know is doing some damage on some big fluke. I heard of a 14-pounder on the Ocean Explorer out of Belmar over the holiday weekend, while Dennis Muhlenforth, Titan of Tog, he took over the seasonal pool aboard the Big Mohawk on Tuesday. He's in the lead of that seasonal pool, an 11.2 pound doormat there on the Big Mohawk. I've been doing a little bit of kayaking myself in the back bay, the upper stretches of Barnegat Bay, but again, it's nothing but shorts for me. I think that if you're capable of getting a kayak out to some place like the Shrewsbury Rocks, just make sure you have that flag, take the safety precautions. But Mike Velez told me he's been yakking out there to the rocks using Gulp for solid action on the flatties. And I think with all that bait out back, you can take a look at your local canal. All the peanuts that are here and will eventually be flooding out of these marshes. I do think that some bigger fluke will make one more run inshore and maybe into the inlets and along those creek mouths once more before everything kind of comes to a close on September 19th. Again, I do really think the best option at this point is to get on those reefs and wrecks. Headboats, of course, a great opportunity to do so. We spoke about the Mary M4 out of Barnegat Light last week, and we were talking about the Rock the Dock tournament. Well, here are the results from the Rock the Dock tournament on your screen right now, and congratulations to the second place finisher, John Bayak, who did well on that Barnegat Light headboat, Captain Sam's Mary M4. So yeah, you can get on those headboats and do some damage with some pretty sizable fish in the 6, 7, and up pound class. Oh yeah, Captain Sam is on the meet. You can tell. That's Sam Sr. there as well on the Mary M4. Speaking of tournaments, the 2021 Riptide Derby is officially underway. That contest runs through December 22nd. This fishing tournament will allow you to drive on the beaches of Brigantine, the front beaches, as long as you're actively fishing. There are 4 divisions for this tournament that carries over through December 22nd. Striped bass, bluefish, black drum, and tautog. Get details where you sign up, which is over at Riptide Bait and Tackle in Brigantine. Also, sign-ups are underway. The registration window is open for the 67th annual Long Beach Island Surf Fishing Classic. The Derby kicks off on October 9th, runs through December. Get in there now for your chance to get one of those commemorative hats. When you register for that October 9th kickoff, you can go to Surf City Bait and Tackle, Fisherman's headquarters in Ship Bottom, or Jingles in Beach Haven. And of course, I look forward to so many Pennsylvania anglers coming back for the fall run, and of course for those tournaments, for the LBI Classic and the Brigantine tournament as well. But the word I'm getting from out west is the fishermen are now returning to those big lakes where there are so many pleasure boaters and jet skiers. But action is starting to get underway. We'll get a look at our offshore forecast for the weekend ahead, but first let's check in with my friend George, the Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. Out here on a breezy day here at Beltsville. You know, the lake was closed a little bit during that last hurricane. Ida came through and dumped a ton of water. I know some of the boat ramps were closed and some of the access was closed over that holiday season. But we are back open now. There's boats on the water. You can see a few guys out here now. A couple of jet skis around, but we're starting to see some fishermen back on the water. And you know, the fishing's starting to get a little bit better too. I talked to a few guys. They're starting to catch a few stripers here again. Obviously, the smallmouth is doing good. Largemouth are doing good. So folks are going to be getting back out in the water over this coming weekend, and it looks pretty good. Now, a few folks did check in. They are starting to get some fish. Jen Wong over there in North Jersey hitting the smallmouth. He said those small lipless crankbaits are doing the trick for him. Good time of year for them. I checked in with Tim Keeber on the Delaware River. He says, you know what? The river is coming down, but slow, and he's taking a little bit of a break from the river, letting those levels come back. He's spending some time offshore chasing those pelagics around, going after some tuna. So lots of action there. You do have some options. But even some of the trout streams, they have calmed down. I was talking to Eric Goodstall, and he is out on the fly getting some of these native brookies in some of these streams that have calmed down a little bit. So you can get into some fishing. I think this weekend, guys, will give us some great opportunities. Let's be sure we get out and get on them. Have a blast, get out, it's our time of year. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
It might be a little early in September to start talking about spooky things. Yeah, I'm alluding to Halloween. But folks are talking about the ghosts on the inshore and mid-range grounds. They've been talking about it a lot of late. 16-year-old Stephen Gilk was out off Monmouth Beach with his dad last week, landed one of those ghosts. 68-inch bluefin estimated at 200 pounds. It was taken on a Tiagra 80 wide, spooled with 130-pound mono and live bunker. So yeah, those live bunker schools are out there, and who knows, those big bluefin are crashing through there as well. Young Stephen fought this stand up, 30 minutes. Pretty impressive, way to go. So yeah, if you're working those inshore or mid-range grounds and you've got some of that heavier gear, you might as well stow it, especially if you have that HMS permit, because you're going to need that if you're chasing bluefin tuna. We're getting reports on mahi at the pots, even inshore, where it's mainly chickens around those inshore pots. But again, the mahi are around. Just don't forget. Do not forget, if you get into one of those big dolphin, those big mahi, bring it into the tackle shop, because we have the Fisherman Magazine's Dreamboat Fishing Challenge going on right now. And at this point, we have 4 empty slots on that leaderboard for mahi. So if you're catching a 20-pound class dolphin, bring it into your local tackle shop, weigh it in. You subscribers could win big in that Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. Of course, those looking to head offshore this weekend, the report from the Hudson to the Baltimore is not exactly shiny and happy. It looks like perhaps Hurricane Larry, it's expected to pass northeast of Bermuda Thursday night, but that long period swell, I'm wondering if that's what's bringing some of the swells into our offshore waters. Definitely worth keeping an eye on in the weekend ahead. Inshore, a small craft advisory is in effect through Thursday night, but things get a little bit better according to the midweek forecast, which has winds switching over to the northwest Friday, to the north on Saturday, and then south by the end of the weekend. This could, of course, change on a whim. We never know. National Weather Service and NOAA Fisheries, but wave heights do look like they could be of concern if you're heading out to those inshore or mid-range waters this weekend. If you are looking to jump aboard a headboat for the weekend ahead, just stay tuned to their email alerts, check their Facebook page to make sure everything's good to go. But we are heading into the final stretch. At the time you see this, we only have a tiny bit more than a week to go in the 2021 summer flounder season here at the Jersey Shore. Not a lot of time to put some meat in the freezer. Catch them up, my friends. I will leave you now with an update from Dave Anderson, our New England edition managing editor, with our Coastal Kayak Clash. I'll see you again next week.
This week in the Coastal Kayak Clash, weather definitely played a factor along with holiday planning. But we did get one fish in that really made a difference, and that was Bob Wagner's 26-inch albie, which not only puts him in first place so far for Fish of the Month for September, but it also leapfrogs him over Justin Oser, gives him 9 points, leading the tournament right now. Justin Oser in second place with 8 points, Bob Stuber holding down third place with 5. Don't forget that September's Fish of the Month is hardtails, so it could be an albie or a bonito. You get a $100 yakattack.com gift card if you win it. And there's still a long way to go. Good luck out there. Get on those kayaks and catch some fish.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.